Hi, my name is Morgan Griffith, and I'm a senior at St. Joseph Notre Dame High School in Alameda, California. Today, I'm going to talk to you about coral reef ecology, what is, in my opinion, one of the most important fields of all of science. So to start off, we're going to talk about something called zooanthellae. So what is zooanthellae? Zooanthellae is basically a microscopic photosynthetic bacteria, specifically a dinoflagellate, or with two flagella, that makes up a special blue-green algae that lives inside the tissues of coral polyps. So what does all this mean? Well, before we can really understand how zooanthellae work, we need to understand what a coral is. Coral is essentially a collection or colony of tiny animals called polyps. These polyps, which are closely related to jellyfish and sea anemones, can either live on their own, attached to rocks or debris like shipwrecks, or they can form intricate colonies known as corals. So how do polyps get the energy they need to form these corals? Polyps get most of their energy in two different ways. The first way that they get energy is by capturing and consuming organisms that live in the water column known as zooplankton. But the vast majority of their energy comes from photosynthesis facilitated by none other than zooanthellae. The fact that corals rely so heavily on photosynthesis for their energy is why you generally find them in clear tropical waters. Their dependence on photosynthesis for energy is also one of the big reasons why we need to make sure that the ocean remains pristine and unpolluted. Because when pollutants like oil, chemical runoff, plastic, and waste runoff enter the ocean and eventually make their way towards the coral reefs, the water becomes murky and dark. This means that sunlight can't penetrate through the water, and many of the corals experience a process known as bleaching. Coral bleaching happens when the zooanthellae that produce the majority of the coral's energy don't get enough sunlight, and as a result, the zooanthellae die, and consequently, so does the coral. This process is known as bleaching because the zooanthellae are the organisms responsible for giving coral their bright, brilliant colors, and when they die, all that's left is a bleach white husk. Here we see a real life image of how coral should look, but here we see a real life image of what coral bleaching does. So what about deep sea corals? As we know, even on a nice sunny day like today, the sunlight can't usually penetrate more than about 100 meters below the ocean's surface. So how do these deep sea polyps get the energy they need to build these super complex reefs that are the most important habitat for so many types of deep sea species? The answer might surprise you. Because they can't photosynthesize, many of these deep sea polyps actually rely more on their ability to capture and consume zooplankton, and for this reason they are much larger than their shallow water cousins. However, because they don't photosynthesize, many of these deep sea corals grow more slowly. Yet recent research shows that deep sea corals in more volcanically active areas grow faster than their relatives in less volcanically active areas. And scientists have a pretty interesting theory about why. Recent research shows that some of these faster growing types of deep sea coral actually rely heavily on a form of chemosynthetic bacteria that lives in their tissue, much like how the zooanthellae live in the tissue of the shallow water corals. So these chemosynthetic bacteria rely heavily on their ability to capture carbon and hydrogen compounds, such as carbon dioxide or hydrogen sulfide, out of the water column and convert them into energy through a process known as oxidation. Pretty neat, right? One type of deep sea coral that performs oxidation through chemosynthetic bacteria to create its energy is Lepidisisolapa. However, this specific coral is also bioluminescent. The bioluminescence in these corals is possible because the dinoflagellate in their tissue synthesizes luciferin, a compound that when it reacts with either luciferase or photoprotein produces an iridescent blue light. Luckily, I was able to spend a week out of my summer studying these corals firsthand, 3 miles off the coast of Oahu, along with Dr. Frank Parrish, Dr. Sylvia Earle, the Hawaii Undersea Research Lab, and DOER Marine. I was going to be one of 3 people inside the Pisces 4 submarine descending 500 meters underwater to observe and study the Lepidisisolapa coral. But even that was just scratching the surface. So as we can see, coral reef ecology is clearly a field that warrants a lot more time and a lot more effort. Because these complex undersea habitats aren't just important for the health of our oceans, but they're important for the health of our planet overall. Thank you.